Welcome, everybody, to Adapt and Create, the podcast where we're talking to and about AI projects with the founders of such projects. With me today, I have Farah from Maru AI. Farah, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me on. We appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. This is still early on. We're on our very early beginnings here. So appreciate you being kind of like a little bit of a guinea pig for this format, but I think it will be definitely valuable to anybody who's interested in actual solutions in AI, actual applications in the industry rather than just making fancy pictures, which I love to do. But so tell us a little bit about Maru AI. What are you guys doing in a nutshell so we can get the conversation started?
Yeah, totally. So, Maru AI is, first of all, focused on the e-commerce industry. And within that e-commerce industry, we are specifically focused on engineering teams that are bringing us these great e-commerce experiences today. We're focused on really alleviating some of the pain that they have with their day to day. So we're like almost emulating what a lead engineer does and how a lead engineer guides a team, answers questions, helps their team just get through some of the day to day minutia of understanding the code, why were decisions made, etc. And really, what that does is it makes the experience from an engineering perspective much more efficient. It provides almost like an insurance, so it de-risks a flight risk or the risk that comes along with maybe losing a resource, somebody who's on the team. And then it also allows the lead engineer to not do the things that they don't want to do day in and day out, right? They want to innovate. I know engineers, you know engineers, that's what they would rather spend their time doing, not answering questions. And so that's what Maru AI does.
Okay, and
Um,
so it sounds interesting, but it also sounds very specific.
yeah, it
Maybe you
is.
could tell us a little bit about you and your team and how you guys maybe got into AI and what type of projects have led you to work on this specific problem.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, our team today is comprised of roughly 8 people. The reason why I say roughly is some people are not full time right now. The majority of our team come from the software development industry. So, we have firsthand experience with the types of pains that software developers, that they encounter day in and day out. That's essentially why we, are wanting to solve this problem. We're passionate about it. We're a group of people that just have first-hand experience in solving this problem with people. Now we need to find a way to solve it with technology, and that's what we're seeing. Right? That's what this is all about: is solving that issue of resources and people with technology. So the idea came about roughly, I don't know, sometime last year, right? It was just kind of like being, batted around. How do we solve this knowledge worker issue that we have in our industry? And then in January, our chairman, who is very technical, he actually owned and operated and sold his own agency that was focused on consulting services for engineers and for brands. He pulled the team together and said, "Hey guys, let's do this." He handpicked folks that were from the industry and that he knew had differing, crafts enough where we could all just kind of input and then bring this team forward and this technology forward. So since January, we've been working on it. We're in beta now, which is really exciting. We've actually, ingested and launched Maru on one of the most complex Adobe Commerce builds in the world today. It's really exciting. It's really putting Maru under a lot of pressure, which is wonderful. We're learning so much. The product is becoming more robust every single minute. Literally, the team is working so hard, and so really, it's bringing this solution to the market and solving something that we know for a fact has really been something that's held back our engineering buddies, right?
Mm.
Because we're from the industry, we care about them.
Yeah, so
So
for somebody who is maybe not as familiar like me in this specific arena, um, could you run us through this solution of yours really quickly, and then maybe
yeah,
also contrast it with how companies were dealing with that issue of knowledge transfer? I believe you said. So generally, with the lead engineer type of issue in a development team, how did they solve that before, and how do you guys,
Yeah.
and ideally, does AI play a role in it?
Oh, yeah, totally. That's a great question. Um, so imagine this. Imagine that Maru is, you're an e-commerce website. Maru is deployed on your site. Maru ingests all of the data that's typically in an e-commerce environment and vectorizes all that data. So then it starts formulating almost like a brain, right? Or maybe like long-term memories. That's how I would, that's the parallel that I would draw. Then what
Mm.
happens is every time there's a change in that e-commerce environment, Maru is scanning the system for the change, grabbing the change, inputting it into that vectorized data so that no matter when someone's interacting with Maru, you're always getting, just updated information. And with code and engineering, it's really important to have updated information because a giant mistake could be made if you don't have that, right? And when we're talking about a revenue generating channel, such as e-commerce, it's
Hmm.
imperative that the information is correct. Okay. So that's maybe a medium term memory. Then what happens is let's say that I'm a user of Maru. I might be an engineer in India and I feel comfortable interacting in Hindi. I can make an inquiry into Maru in Hindi, even though my engineering team, the rest of my team is maybe in the US, Latin America, maybe they're in Eastern Europe. Let's just say they're spread out all over the world. They speak all these different languages. The documentation is in different languages. It's just kind of all over the place, which, mind you, is a very common scenario in our industry, very common. So I can put my inquiry in, Maru does the translation, pulls the response, translates it back into Hindi for me because I want it to be actionable for this engineer in particular, right? And then I can act on it. What did Maru do? Maru really created a true follow the sun approach, right? Like a lot of companies say, oh, we have a follow the sun approach, which means that you always have technical support no matter what time zone that you're in.
Mm.
Well, the truth is now it's true. You have an engineer now that's in India that maybe is junior that can operate at a much higher level, right? So that's tactically what Maru does. The types of questions that Maru can answer are things like, what are my code standards? Give me an example of code creating this feature functionality, right? What happens when I interact or when I introduce this extension or this, integration or whatever it might be into my system? What is the effect of it on my system? Or why did I make the decision that I made? Or things like, where is this code, right? Like just very simple things that typically an engineer and an engineering team, they go to a lead engineer to ask those
Mm.
questions. So now there's a lot of value put on this lead engineer. Like they can't even take a vacation,
Mm.
right? Like they're like around the clock, attached to this team. So they can't really get the proper time with their families, right? They don't
Mm.
get to do the things that they want to do. And listen, this is the reason why we created this platform. This is exactly
Okay.
why we did it. It has nothing to do with AI. Okay.
Mm.
We care about solving this business problem because we had colleagues and people that we work with where we just didn't want to see them work 80, 100 hours a week anymore. Right. We
Mm.
just didn't want to see that. We want to be able to solve this issue for them so that lead engineer can then say, okay, now I want to go innovate. And it's better for the company too, because now the company is not losing money that they typically lose with paying this expensive lead engineer to just answer questions all day. So you
Mm.
asked another question, how do companies typically deal with
Right.
gaps from a lead engineer? Well, the truth is, and this is after a lot of experience in the industry, they don't deal with it well. They typically don't have a contingency plan. So fun fact is that usually if a lead engineer leaves the organization, it takes 90 days to find and train up the next lead engineer so they can start adding value like that original one. 90
Mm.
days is so expensive. Now with Maru, you can have Maru deployed and Maru does the job for you. When you bring in a lead engineer, they're onboarding much faster, right?
Right.
It allows them to do the things that they want to do. So,
So, how much
um,
faster would you say with Maru until somebody can kind of take
yeah.
on that role, even if it's augmented?
So the goal right now, and listen, we're in beta, the goal is an hour. So
Wow.
you
So
onboard,
from 90 days to an hour.
yeah, you
That's
onboard,
quite a
and
small
within an
point.
hour, all of the data from that e-commerce environment is ingested, and now any
Mm.
engineer can start interacting with it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I hear, first of all, I love this. I oftentimes talk about to my customers that augmentation with AI, enhancing the capabilities of your employees is really a true value right now, at least with what AI can offer. My question is, though, on the other side, it almost seems like AI seems like a little bit of a double-edged sword. And I would like to know your perspective because you're basically, I mean, it is an AI product that
It
you're
is. Yeah.
offering. How do you deal with this? Obviously, it's a big opportunity right now, but also, especially when it comes to coding, it seems like you're kind of creating your own enemy. Can you give me a little bit of your thoughts on that? You know what I mean? Like, because essentially it will take over. And I don't know exactly how that affects you because you're the service provider, the one who owns it. So maybe it's good for you. But what's your thought on this when you see people training AIs that essentially will replace them? Will they?
I don't. I don't think so. I don't think AI is going to replace what people want to do.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, so you were just talking about developing pretty pictures, right?
Mm.
How you like doing that. I like doing that too. And it's interesting. It's like, even in that scenario, you're the one who comes up with the prompt. You're the one with the idea, right? And then the AI is just the one that kind of helps the process, you know? And I think that that is, it's almost like your sounding board. You know, that's the way that I view it. And listen, like, we are trying to find lots of ways to implement AI into our own business. So we're testing out a lot of different tools. And it's interesting. I mean, you really have to treat AI like another person, but it's not going to replace a person.
Mm.
And there's a lot of reasons for this, right? Like, one is that we're expected to have a major labor gap coming up here soon, right? Like by 2030, we're expected, or we're expected that less than 10% of the labor market is going to be made up of baby boomers, when the majority of it is baby boomers right now, right? There's some
Mm.
huge stats around the labor gap and workforce gap, and just in the U.S. now. If you look at globally, it's huge, right? It's almost something that you can't, like, when you think about it, you're like, well, what's the response? What's the answer? And the answer is technology, right? We don't want to ask
Mm.
women to not take maternity leave. We don't want to ask baby boomers to not retire. That's not good. That's not a good
Right.
culture, right? So we're going to have to accept technology and utilize it. But I would say that I think that the adoption is going to be slow, right? I think that people are signing up for AI right now, but are they actually utilizing it to do their jobs? I don't
Mm.
think it's as quick as we think it's going to be, right? I think it's going to be just a little bit slower than we're expected, maybe than we need, even. You
Yeah,
know?
I think. I mean, yeah, it's very curious. I'm very curious. I don't want to talk too much about myself, but a couple years ago, I actually became a realtor back in
Oh,
Hawaii because I wanted to. That was while I was working on other startups because I wanted to innovate in that industry, and I just the pushback against technology was just so immense that I was just like, okay, I'll just
forget
do
it.
something else, but it's not right yet. I see a similar thing now, oftentimes with lawyers,
Oh,
with
yeah.
all the lawsuits and everybody quoting that one case where there was like hallucinations and all that. I get it, but that's not really what it's meant to do. So wait till there's AI that actually is fine tuned for that. I'm curious how much there will be adoption, and then there's going to be pushback as well. I'm very curious about that. It seems like while very important coding to have people oversee the process and all that, they do seem like there's like a lot of innovation happening. Let's say
There
AI
is.
aided.
Yeah.
You look at the numbers on GitHub, how much code is actually already AI generated and all that stuff. So I think that's fascinating, and I think developers and people who are really professionals in that field will actually benefit from that because it's
Oh,
inevitable, I think.
yeah. I
But let's
agree.
talk a little bit more about your startup.
Okay.
When you started conceptualizing and you worked on the early versions, was there any assumption that you had that would go one way and then it went the other way based on feedback? Did you guys have to pivot already, or are you pre-pivot? What do you think?
It's so interesting. So we've pivoted A lot in little ways. And then we've had some bigger pivots, right? Like the product in particular, when it was first being ideated, there was one version of the product where it was much smaller than it is today. It just didn't, I would say it was almost like it was an extension, right? It was not an enterprise grade solution. Now, after going out into the market and talking to folks, that are, related to consultancies, tech people that, are running e-commerce websites day in and day out, brands also that are not actually like running the technical part of the e-commerce website, but they have a POV, right? Like just going out there in the market. What's happened since then is it's become very robust, right? Like what Maru offers is really robust because we started listening to the feedback. Like, people would say, "Oh my God, that's really amazing what you guys are doing. Finally, someone's solving this problem. It's a real problem for me. I wish this would have come out 3 years ago, 4 years ago." Right. And then, and then they would be, but what if it did this? Or what if it did that? And then even to the point where, we're in the fundraising stage right now where we were meeting with potential investors early on. And we met with one potential investor. It was actually one of the very first pitches that I did. And they were like, I think you're trying to boil the ocean. I think you should hone it in a little bit when it comes to the go-to-market, not necessarily the solution, but which market we were going after first, which I'll tell you, that pivoted the entire go-to-market marketing plan, sales approach, everything drastically. It made us more targeted, which I think will work out for us. So that was one of the changes. Another thing is that like, when we were first creating the solution from an architecture standpoint, just thinking about our hosting infrastructure, we've totally changed that original infrastructure. And it is because of Maru being so robust now, right? And the extra data that we're ingesting and how many times we expect Maru to be, queried with an actual client. So there have been some big shifts. Another thing is, and this is just basic business, and I would say, there's lots of AI startups, right? One of the main pivots that we made is we thought we were going to bootstrap this baby.
Yeah.
And then we realized how quickly the market was moving and how fast we had to move. And we were like, oh, okay. So that was actually a really big pivot, but it was a positive pivot because from a sales and a marketing perspective, it had us pull together our content and our assets much faster because now we're pitching. And this is what investors want to see, that you have a strong approach, right? They want to know that you're going to pay them, X fold, whatever they invest. And so it made us kind of get ahead of the game when it comes to sales assets and marketing approach and all of that. So they've all been really good pivots. I would say that AI is like other industries and other startups, but it's moving at just a really fast pace compared. You know what I mean? Like you make a lot of the same business exactly decisions. What you mean.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually my next question too. It's good that you mentioned that from your perspective, but also from, well, let's start with your perspective. The whole point of AI moving so quickly, when you work on a startup, like you just discussed, pivoting is natural just based on feedback, right? But on top of that, there's another layer of all the things the capabilities that are coming out left and right every week. It's crazy. I wonder, from your perspective as a CEO of a startup, how do you stay focused on your course, and how do you even determine like certain milestones without having like some sort of FOMO on steroids? You know what I mean? Like, how do you do that in your company?
I got a guy. No, I'm kidding. No, really. So I would say yes. There's a lot of FOMO for sure. You see people moving fast, and you see this new thing that hits the market. You're like, oh my gosh, do I need to move? I think that just getting back to the root of why my team is doing this, right? We're here to solve a specific problem. And that would be my advice actually to other AI startups is, what is your market fit? What's the problem that you're solving? Don't make this about AI. Make it about the solution, the people that you're helping. Who are you enabling? Who are you empowering? Make it about them. And that's the thing that has me put on the blinders a little bit with all of the other things that are hitting the market. Of course, you get really excited every time there's a new technology that hits. I'm like, oh my gosh, is that like us?
Right.
Or is it something that we should be doing? But quite frankly, I think that the track that we're on is really good. It feels really powerful when we talk to people. They're really excited about us, you know. So that's really what I do. I just think so. I have this one story. I was working for a large consultancy before focusing on Maru, and I was CEOing for a really large brand. It's actually the most well recognized brand in the world. I mean, you can guess who they are, but I was focused on them, and our lead engineer. You're calling them. Shouldn't have said that. Anyways,
I don't know.
Whatever. So our lead engineer had his son had a soccer game over the weekend. It was actually a tournament game, and the son's like 15 or 16 or something like that, and he couldn't actually attend it because we were actually going to be releasing a pretty significant amount of code to the environment, and so he couldn't go and see his son, win the tournament. They won the tournament in the end, and I felt so bad, right? Because my son plays soccer. I really felt like I really empathized with him. I couldn't imagine doing that. I wouldn't actually want to pick work in this scenario, right? I would want to pick my son. But he's put in this position where it's just really difficult. You have to be available. Otherwise, you let down this giant team. And if something goes wrong, you've let them down, right? And it's for that reason that we've created Maru. We don't want scenarios like that, right? It's for that reason that we believe that, focusing on fixing that problem is going to mean success for us.
Yeah. That's a good path, I think.
Yeah.
What would you suggest? And that was the other side of the coin that I asked earlier when it comes to the speed of innovation in AI. For the young people that are listening to, or even old, like middle age, whatever, that are listening and they're fascinated and they kind of want to be prepared to work in AI or work with AI, but they might be a little bit overwhelmed with all the news. Is there any type of tip that you can give them when it comes to maybe reskilling what they already do and integrating AI? Like how should they think about the topic?
Well, first of all, AI has been around for a long time, right? It's not a new technology by any stretch of the imagination. If they would have gone to university, there would have been a course that they could have taken or something that they could have done. So they just need to go down that same traditional road, right? I think that lots of universities are offering AI courses. You can do LinkedIn Learning. I'm a big advocate of I love LinkedIn. I think that it's really great. I think that you can get an entry there. Actually, recently I posted on LinkedIn that we were looking for engineers, right? And I had listed a handful of different types of engineers. And I said that I was the CEO of an AI startup. And the outreach that I got after that was overwhelming. It was like literally our COO is interviewing 25 candidates.
Yeah.
Just based on, I spent just a couple minutes making this post, right? I can't believe what the response rate was. And I would say that almost every single candidate was really, really great. Some of them were not actually fit for they didn't have any engineering background at all. They just were really excited.
Yeah.
So maybe they didn't read my whole post, but yeah, I think that, there's lots of things that you can do. You can find a lot of information on the web. You can do, something through your local university. LinkedIn Learning has some really great offerings right now that Microsoft, et cetera, is offering for free. I mean, you don't have to pay for it, right? Yeah. So that's a really great way to do it. And they even have so this is really big, ethics in AI. So the Microsoft offering actually covers, there's a whole section on ethics, right? And what responsible AI really means to the world. I think that, you should definitely check that out. But I think that if you're trying to work in AI, just apply. Just go out, because there is a shortage. There is a shortage of engineers. There's a shortage of AI engineers in particular, right? It just ask,
Yeah.
just like you would learn a new language as an engineer, right? You would go
D-
and go through those traditional ways of doing it. You would try to get hands-on experience at work. It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
Do you ever do you find yourself talking a lot about AI in your private life too, or is it just completely reserved for professional? Like with friends, so when you're at a dinner and it just takes over the conversation.
So a lot of people ask about it. Lots of people ask about it, and I don't try to spend too much time talking about it, to be honest with you,
Mm.
because I don't know. I just think that people might think I'm a little nuts too for doing this. That's the truth.
Well,
Like I
that
think
train
that,
has left the station with me.
and I also think that this is not indicative of just
Right.
AI. This is indicative of being the CEO of a startup,
Mm.
right? It's massive risk that you take doing that because at this point we're pretty bootstrapped, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so I would say that, yeah, I kind of shy away from talking about AI, but if somebody asks, then I'll like outline the different types of AI and I'll
Mm.
tell them about it and what it's like, but only if they start really like going after me, then I'll,
Gotcha.
tell
No,
them.
I meant the train has left the station with me that people think that I'm nuts because, and I'm asking you this because just yesterday, actually, I was at a wedding and a friend came along and we haven't seen each other for a while and his son just went to college to study
Mm-hmm.
biology. And my friend said that his son wants to become a cardiologist. And to me, immediately, I'm like, you got to tell him to look into AI for medical applications. And I'm telling him, you know what? By the time your son graduates, there's going to be at least like a mandatory second AI opinion or something for every doctor's decision.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's just my prediction, like wild as and crazy as it should be, but who knows? That's what I'm thinking. I still, and then at the same time, I'm like cringing, but I feel like there is enough value for me to say that at least because that guy he's not like in AI in that bubble. That's why I was just curious if it's just me, but I guess it's just me.
No, it's not. It's not just you. Yes. I mean, I talk about it, but I try not to be too work
Yeah. All right.
focused.
Well, Farah, I think that was really amazing. Where you said you guys are currently fundraising, is that right?
Yeah, so we're fundraising. We are in beta. We launch in sometime in October. I think it's going to be middle of October. We've got a big event that's going to happen in the middle of October, and so we're trying to hit that date right now. I think that
Okay.
like if all of the things continue, if the weather stays perfect the way it's been in our company,
Yeah.
then we'll hit it. But it's AI,
Yeah.
right? It's technology. You just never know. You never know what's going to
Right.
happen. But that's what the goal is.
Okay, great.
Um,
Then where can people find more information if they want to reach out to you? What's the best way?
Yeah, so they can go to our website, www.maru.ai. They can also email me at Farah, F as in Frank, ARAH, at Maru, MARU.ai.
Hmm.
And then I think that you'll probably have some
Yeah,
links
we'll link all
below
that
this,
in the
right?
description for
Yeah,
sure.
perfect.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Then you'll have a couple more applications coming down the line, I guess. Sounds definitely exciting because a lot of the AI startups that I talk about and people ask me about, they're very much just like a top layer or like a filter for what's already out there. And it seems
Hmm.
like you guys have a much more integrated
We have it deep.
vision that
Yeah.
also focuses really on the end user and making their lives better. So I think that's great rather than just creating new content, which is not bad, but
It's
so that's great.
fun. Yeah.
Tara, thanks again. Really
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
And yeah, good luck. And I'll talk
Thank
to you in the
you.
future.
Okay. Take
All right.
care. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me on. Bye.
Bye.